What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for April 2nd, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the podcast. Tuesday, that means it's time for a little motivation / positivity. And I did switch things up slightly. I had something planned that I'm going to push back to next week. But if you remember back in December when we did the food and gift drive, I spoke a lot about gratitude and just being grateful and appreciative of what you have and things like that. Well, last night I went out to my hometown to pay respects to a very good friend of mine's dad who passed away last week. She married one of my best friends from high school too, so his father-in-law. But anytime I get to go out to Coatesville, which is where I'm from. It's like a 45-minute drive from where I am now. But even when I was in the city and it was a little bit longer, it's just I always kind of reflect on that drive and just kind of think about where I've come from and how where I am now. And obviously we've talked a lot of times about be happy with where you are, but keep an eye on where you're going. But I do think sometimes it's important to just kind of reflect on where you've been to kind of see the journey. And to me, whenever I go back out to home, obviously it's always great to see my parents. The kids got to hang out with them, not really unexpectedly, but like for a short time yesterday. But just kind of being around the people that I grew up with that kind of helped shape who I am and got me to where I am. Obviously, the old saying, it takes a village. So lots of people have come into my life and helped influence. But whenever I get a chance to go and see sort of where it began, I know it sounds like a hyperbole or whatever, but I mean, it is where it began for me. And it's always very humbling and just grateful. So no matter where you are right now, no matter where you're from, what you have going on, just show gratitude and just be grateful for the things you do have in your life, because obviously life is short. You never know what's going to happen. And it takes times like that for me anyway, to pay respects to somebody who I knew very well, just from growing up with the family and everything. It just kind of helps to put things in perspective. And it's good to kind of go back to those roots to see where you've come from, and just appreciate where you are and just be grateful for what you have, who's been in your life, who's helped influence that. So it's not really a motivational quote or anything. It's more just kind of me just ranting for a couple minutes, but just be grateful. And if you have people that you're close to that you haven't reached out to in a while or you haven't spoken to, why not do it today? And just be thankful and grateful for the journey that you've been on. We've talked, like I said, a couple weeks ago about being okay where you are, keeping an eye on where you're going, but just be thankful for where you've been, because all of those experiences help shape where you are right now. So that is today's motivational / positivity for a Tuesday. And I have to say, and I kind of like when I get good feedback on these. I've been getting a lot of good feedback over the past couple of weeks on the Tuesday. Obviously, this started back when Damar Hamlin, that whole incident happened and everything. But hopefully, maybe if you don't have feedback, that's fine. I'm not saying you need to reach out to me and let me know. But, I mean, the amount of positive feedback I got, the fact that people wanted to reach out, that if you're able to take anything away from this, I love that. Because obviously there's a large majority of the audience that is male out there, and obviously there still is that stigma that we're not supposed to have feelings, you're not supposed to do this, and just be stoic. But if this helps you cope with some things you have going on in your life, that's okay by me, because I know a lot of these quotes are things that have had an impact on me that I've kind of implemented and practiced in my life. So just be grateful. That's all I can say today, and that is today's Tuesday motivation. Update from yesterday, the whole low seed versus high seed. I guess the way the NCAA does it, it's the lowest seed is the higher number. So Villanova is the lowest seed to ever win the national championship, which brings us to a recap then of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, which underdog story in Philadelphia sports history is the greatest and kind of shocking, to be completely honest with you. I expected one to really run away with it, but we have a three-way tie between the 85 Villanova Wildcats, the 2010 Flyers, and the 2017 Eagles. I thought with this being such a football town that Eagles team being the first Super Bowl team, the Nick Foles story would have run away with it. But it was a three-way tie, and then the 93 Phillies kind of bringing up the rear. But very, very surprised at the outcome. I still would have given the 93 Phils probably my vote, but as always, thank you for participating in the question of the day. 267-495-8531 get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. All right, let's start with the Flyers, who dropped the game to the Islanders in overtime 4-3 in a game which they tied it up with 9 seconds left and then lost it very early in the overtime period. They did walk away with the point. However, it's going to be close because I had some of my facts wrong yesterday. They are currently 1 point up now on Washington and Detroit. Washington for the third spot, and then Detroit's right there for then the final wild card spot because Washington was off. Detroit played last night and won. So they have now played themselves into must-win situations. Like overtime losses are nice getting these points, but they need the 2 points because Washington has 3 games in hand, and I mistook that for the other way around, that the Flyers have played less games. No, the Capitals have played less games, so the Flyers have played 3 more games than the Capitals. Capitals actually will play twice this week before the Flyers play again, so that'll help even things out. So by the end of the week, we'll have a clearer picture. But Flyers need a spark, and maybe they got it. Fedotov made his debut. He came in the second period and played halfway decent. Not bad for his first time, but they need something because they're kind of in a tailspin right now. They haven't won in a while. And, yeah, overtime losses are good to a certain point, but they I hate to say this because we've been following them all year, but the Flyers are in a lot of trouble. And a lot of people said that the other day. So we'll keep an eye on the Capitals this week to see what they do. I think Detroit plays another game in there too. They have a game in hand on the Flyers too. So just one game, but 3 games in hand for the Capitals. It's luckily 2 of them are this week. So like I said, we'll have a better sense. But things are not good in Flyers land right now. On the flip side, the Sixers got some great news yesterday. They take on the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight at the Wells Fargo Center. The expectation is that Joe will be back this week. There were some reports saying that it's possible he could come back as soon as tonight. The 6th will actually be, so Saturday will actually be the 8-week mark. Typically, this injury is a 4 to 6 week injury. The Flyers gave him the Sixers gave him an 8 to 10 week kind of window, so he's definitely within the average range for this to come back. The report I saw was that he was ruled out for today, but how many times have we seen Joe come back from an injury where he's been listed as doubtful or out, and then at the last minute, kind of like The Undertaker, sitting up in the middle of the ring, he comes up, plays well. So we'll see, but he will be back this week. Big game against the Thunder tonight, but we'll see. I mean, there's always the possibility they bring him back at home, and then they go on like a 3-game road trip. Maybe they get him right on the road and then make his home debut. I don't know, but good news for the Sixers as they're trying to get out of that play-in tournament. And again, if Joe comes back at 80% of what he was this season, I think they can go on a nice little run and get into that 6th seed. But it all depends on when he comes back and how he comes back. But good news is on the horizon there for Joe and the Sixers. Eagles updates. Reed Blankenship was extended through 2025. It's kind of a solid move. I mean, nothing that's going to really move the needle. He's just a solid player. He's not going to be like, oh, yeah, everything is fine in the secondary. But lots of talk about the Hassan Reddick trade yesterday, I guess because it happened over the weekend and everybody, the sports talk stations were just getting to it, or the regulars, I guess. And I don't know, lots of people on both sides of this. I still don't know. I feel like there might be more to the story because he wanted the to stay here and Howie just didn't want to pay him. Like I said before, I don't think they're a better team without him, but I'm going to trust Howie and the Eagles on this one, that maybe they saw something that maybe we didn't see. I mean, there's plenty of other question marks for this team to be worried about than Hassan Reddick. So hopefully they use that money to sign Smitty, which I will say every day until that contract extension gets signed. I did see a couple of April Fool's jokes yesterday on Twitter saying that he was traded to the Cowboys. Yeah. I mean, it just wasn't even funny at all. But good job for you guys. From bad to worse, I guess you could say. Phillies, just it's still too early to panic, but they need to figure it out. Lost 6-3 to the Reds. Rojas killed a rally with some poor base running. Connor Brogdon was absolutely horrible in extra innings. Christopher Sanchez was good. I mean, he gave up 2 runs in 5 innings, 8 strikeouts. For your 4th starter, possibly your 5th, depending on what happens with Tawan Walker, I will take that every time. And for the most part, the bullpen did well, except for Brogdon. And I don't know. He went through this last year. He's out of options. They sent him down to AAA, and then he was able to come back and be good down the stretch and in the playoffs. But, man, I don't know what's going on with this team. Offensively, they're not doing much. They're not doing well. I don't have the stats on me, and I know this has been an issue consistently over the past 2 years we've talked about, but they're not getting runners in when they're in scoring position, whether it's boneheaded base running plays or just untimely hitting. And I will say, Bryce Harper, people are going to say, oh, he's not doing it. He's hitting the ball hard. He's just getting very unlucky. Like yesterday, that line drive would have, like, it almost took the pitcher's head off. The pitcher, like, put his glove up and happened to catch it. That could have been would have been at least a single, but could have been a double. And he did that the other day too. Like, he's hitting the ball hard. He's just hitting it, unfortunately, right where people are. Even the other day, like, he flied out deep to the warning track. He's just missing. So I'm not that concerned with Bryce right now. I think he'll come. I am concerned with the bullpen. So I don't know. I believe Spencer Turnbull should be starting tonight. So we're hopeful. Hopeful. I'll get it out. Hopeful that he can pitch like he did in spring training to a certain point. But, man, the bullpen has just not been. And it's a different guy who's the GOAT every day. So I don't know. But they're back at it tonight. Hopefully, depending on the weather, maybe a rain out or 2 might be what the doctor ordered for them. But not a good start so far. 1-3 in their first 4 games for the Phils. Not the start we were looking for. All right. Going to do this a little different today, only because they're here. They finally came, my canvas loafers from Philly Goat, and they're everything I thought they would be. And I will say I was a little nervous about this because I always like to make sure I'm giving you guys honest and factual stuff. And Philly Goat has been such a good friend of the show. I was nervous to give an honest review of these in case they didn't live up to the expectation. Well, that's shame on me for doubting Philly Goat. And first of all, here are the Schmitties. These things are phenomenal. I mean, looks-wise, they're incredible. These are the Cape Mays. These are probably going to be the go-to shoes this summer, to be completely honest, just because they have more of that summery feel. The Schmitties, though, I have some some stuff that'll go with these. But I love these, and of course, the holy grail, the fans. These things are phenomenal, and truthfully, the first thing I noticed when I opened the box is just these things are legit. These are not like Bobo shoes that you kind of just cheaply made. These are like very sturdy, and they're heavy. Like they definitely have a little bit of weight to them, which is good because that to me that means it's a quality shoe. I mean they are legit. There's the Philly Goat logo. I put them on, and they are legitimately, and I'm not just saying this because I'm super nervous about this. They are so comfortable. They are ridiculously comfortable. I'm very pleased with the purchase of all three. You should too. Honestly, if you have not already, go buy your Philly Goat canvas loafers. Check out the designs they have. These things are phenomenal. The only thing that I'm going to do extra on this, and this has nothing to do with the shoes. This has everything to do with my feet. I'm not a big no sock person. Like when it comes to boat shoes and sandals, and well, not I shouldn't say sandals. Even slippers around the house, because my feet tend to sweat a lot. So, and this is an unpaid plug here. I got on Amazon, and they make socks specifically for canvas loafers that kind of dip down. They fit on your foot, but they dip down like in this area. So I got 8 pair for $16 on Amazon, but I cannot wait to wear these things. I mean, when I say these are like very well crafted and solid shoes, I mean, you just got to check it out for yourself. Like there's cushion where there needs to be cushion. It's like very good heavy duty canvas. They got the good soles on them. Like these things are phenomenal. And again, I spent way longer than I normally do promoting Philly Goat, but I had to show off these shoes. I had to give you my honest opinion. I can't wait to wear them. They're so comfortable. Go to Philly Goat. Get your Philly canvas shoes today. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. They're $65. Use the 10% off with everything. It gets you under $60. If you buy enough, shipping is free. So you can't lose. So go to phillygoat.com. Get some t-shirts to match the shoes. Promo code Jim Montgomery. I mean, these things, I'm telling you, they're phenomenal. I cannot wait to wear these. And I was blown away at just how well crafted they were. So shout out to Ryan and the team at Philly Goat. You hit it out of the park with the shoes. Cannot wait to wear them. This is me telling you, as soon as you're done listening to the podcast, go buy your shoes. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off. I guarantee it that you will not be disappointed. All right. Sticking with the Phil's theme, we're going to go back all the way back in the Wayback Machine today to 1883. And on this day in 1883, the National League's newest expansion team, the Philadelphia Quakers, played their first ever game, an exhibition against the Manayunk Ashlands at Recreation Park. The Quakers won 11-0. In the next day's Philadelphia Inquirer, the paper called them the Phillies for short, and that was common in the day. The New York teams were the New Yorks. The Bostons. We talked about and we'll talk more about them in a minute, the Worcesters. They shortened it. Instead of the Philadelphias, the Philadelphia Phillies. And the Phillies and Quakers name were used interchangeably in those earlier days, but the Phillies is the one that stuck, and the Phillies nickname is one of the longest continuously used nicknames by a team in the same city. Back to that 1883 season, not so good for the Quakers / Phillies. They had a 170 or a 173 winning percentage, which is thankfully still the worst in team history. As we know, the history of the Phillies got slightly better, but not much over the course of 142 years at this point. But a little bit background on how they came to be. we did discuss this back in November, but a group that was led by A.J. Reach, the sporting goods guy, and attorney John Rogers, won the rights to an expansion team for the Classic 8, as they called it, of the National League. They took the spot of the Worcesters. There are some who believe that Reach and Rogers bought the Worcesters, including sometimes the Phillies themselves kind of thought that, but there is no connection between the two teams. No players or nobody from Worcester played in Philadelphia that first year, so there is no connection. So they essentially were an expansion team who just happened to take the spot of the Worcesters back in 1883. But on this day, the Phillies/Quakers played their first ever game, an 11-0 win over the Manayunk Ashlands, who were an amateur team at the time, at Recreation Park. The next day, the newspaper, the Inquirer, gave them the nickname the Phillies, which has stuck 142 years later. So if you ever wonder why the Phillies are the Phillies, it's because the Inquirer nicknamed them that because they didn't want to call them the Philadelphias. So thank you, Philadelphia Inquirer, for that one. Thank you. But that was on this day back in 1883. And then finally today, we're going to continue our look at Philly teams that have unfinished business, or as I like to say, left some meat on the bone. And today we're going to take a look at the 1978 through 1981 Eagles. Dick Vermeil took over the team in 1976 and kind of had them on an upward trajectory. In 1978, they finally reached the postseason under Vermeil. It was the first time since 1960. It was the first time since 1966 that they had a winning record at 9-7. It also happened in 1978. For those of you who pay attention to who are loyal listeners and listen every day, we know 1978 was also the year of the original Miracle of the Meadowlands, when Herm Edwards played to win the game and took Joe Pitharchik's fumble in for a touchdown. They did lose to the Falcons in the wild card round that year in Atlanta, but again, no harm, no foul, because Dick Vermeil had them on the upward trajectory. 1979, they went 11-5, made the wild card again, finished behind the Cowboys, I believe it was, for the division. It was their first ever playoff game, or won their first playoff game that year under Vermeil. The wild card game against the Bears, 27-17. The next round, they lost to the Buccaneers in the divisional round, 17-0. They got down early. They did battle back. I think they lost 27-17 that game as well. Or maybe that was the Bears game. I forget what the score of that game was. But they did battle back. It was just too little, too late. And that one, they could have possibly, because of the way everybody got knocked out and the way the playoffs went, they would have went out and played the Rams out in L.A. that next week. Could have possibly beat them and then set up the first ever, which we're still waiting on, all Pennsylvania Super Bowl, but it was not meant to be. And then 1980 came, and that was the year. They started off 11-1, kind of faltered down the stretch, 1-4. The offense struggled late in the season and even into the playoffs. That Vikings divisional playoff game was 100% the defense, and if the Vikings didn't really give that game away, we might be talking a little bit different about the whole Dick Vermeil era, to be honest. They did beat the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game, which to me, I will still say was the Super Bowl for the Eagles, is getting over that hump and finally beating the Cowboys. Defensively, they shut down the Cowboys that game. Wilbur Montgomery's run was key. But then once they got into the Super Bowl, the Eagles were actually favored in there. They had beaten the Raiders earlier in the year, and the offense just struggled. Ron Jaworski was not sharp early. The defense, I don't know if they felt, because I didn't watch the game. Obviously, I was too young, but wasn't sure if the defense was pressing a little bit because they knew the offense was struggling early. But the Herm Edwards trying to intercept the pass that went to Kenny King really was the difference in that game, and just was never right. 27-10, the Eagles lost Super Bowl 15 to the Raiders. 1981, though, they came back, went 6-0, and then only finished 10-6. and then lost a horrible game in the wild card round to the Giants at the Vet. It would have been tough in 81 because that was the year sort of that Joe Montana and the Niners took the torch away from the Cowboys. But who knows? Maybe if the Eagles didn't falter down the stretch, maybe something else would have. We'd be in an alternate universe where Joe Montana wasn't Joe Montana, and somehow Ron Jaworski and Randall Cunningham would have been the Steve Young and Joe Montana of the 80s and early 90s. But unfortunately, it was not meant to be. 1981 was the last year the Eagles made the playoffs until 1988 under Buddy Ryan. And that 3-year stretch, really, from 79, 80, and 81, will give 78 a pass. Like, those 3 years, man, the Eagles were one of the top teams in the league and just could not take advantage of it. And I think that, really, to me, if you look at it, it's kind of like that NFC Championship game against the Cowboys, I almost feel like masks what happened the end of the 1980 season. And just the emotional high of beating the Cowboys, I think all of that is what led to them losing the Super Bowl because I feel the defense felt it needed to press and make up because Jaworski and the offense was struggling a little bit. But who knows? I think that, to me, that 1980 team is the team that of really a lot of the teams in Philly that left a lot of meat on the bone. That 1980 team is the one that has, I'll put them top 5 of having unfinished business and just not bringing it home. And especially in 1980 when all of the teams were in the finals that year. Unfortunately, only the Phillies won. But the 1978 through 1981 Eagles are today's Philly team that has unfinished business, that left some meat on the bone, that just could not get it done, despite high expectations and many chances. But that leads us into today's question of the day. We talked about the Eagles knocking off the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. Wilbur Montgomery's run is the iconic moment from that. Which non-Super Bowl play in Eagles postseason history is the greatest? Is it Wilbert's run? Is it 4th and 26? Is it Rodney Peete to Rob Carpenter's Hail Mary right before halftime in the 95 wildcard game against the Lions? Or is it Patrick Robinson's pick 6 in the 2017 NFC Championship game? Let me know which non-Super Bowl, that's the key qualifier there, non-Super Bowl Eagles play is the greatest in history. Wilbert's run, Rodney Peete to Rob Carpenter's Hail Mary, 4th and 26, or Patrick Robinson's pick 6. That is tough. I was there for 2 of the 4 of them. I watched the Rodney Peete one on TV, so I think I have to go 4th and 26. But let me know what you think. 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Go buy the shoes. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order at Philly Goat. You won't be disappointed. Give me your thoughts on the best non-Super Bowl Eagles postseason play of all time. Did I miss one that you think was better? Enjoy the rain today. But we're going to be grateful. That's the theme today. Grateful. We're grateful that we're able to be here and complain about the rain. And that sometimes is how you got to look at it, but that's still showing gratitude. So show your gratitude that you're able to bitch about the rain. I know for me, lots of things were put into perspective over the past week or so. So I'm grateful that it's raining and I can complain about it. But go have yourselves a Tuesday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.